Good morning. We have two powerful readings. The second letter of St. Paul to Timothy. This morning, I want to speak of the power of the word. Paul says the gospel cannot be chained. And Paul is speaking while he is in a very, very bad situation. He's in a very difficult situation. He is in prison while he's writing to Timothy. And one could imagine that when you are in a difficult situation, the word of God will have no impact. And when you're in a difficult situation, you don't even have time to preach or to think of talking about Jesus. But this is the moment Paul sees to preach the gospel. And he becomes even more influential, and he says the word of God cannot be chained. There is no circumstance whatsoever. There is no situation whatsoever. There is no power that can stop the word of God from being effective. Because in the Acts of the Apostles, the word of God itself reminds us that this is a sharpened sword. It is active and alive. So, why is the word of God so? Because it is indeed the word of the word incarnate, the Son of God, Jesus Christ. And when the word is spoken and is preached, it is indeed the good news of salvation that is preached. It is indeed the good news of liberation. The letter to the Galatians in chapter 5, verse 1 says, it is for freedom that we are free. And it's for freedom that Christ frees us. So if the word of God is Christ himself, it should, and it must bring liberation. That's the first point for today. No circumstance, nothing, no situation should either prevent us from preaching the word of God or also make these words inefficacious. This word can act at any time. It has power from the time it's occurred. Has power from the beginning. It has power in itself. It has power over everything. And it has power over all. The gospel of today since 2 days, 3 days now, we see the different groups that I mentioned yesterday. We first saw the Pharisees sent by they sent the Herodians, which are like a kind of sector, a political sect defending the politics of Herod. to trap him about the taxes. Yesterday it was on marriage. They sent the Sadducees, then raising the question of resurrection. And today they are sending them, they come themselves as Pharisees. They are the doctors of the law. It's true, even if they are trying to test Jesus, themselves they are struggling, because in the context of the Jewish context, we have hundreds and hundreds of laws, at least more than 600 of laws to follow. So this is a serious burden for these people, and they are looking for a way. What are the laws that they need to keep? What are the laws that can be maintained? So they come to Jesus. Master, what is the most important law in the commandments? This shows these guys, they also need liberation. They need freedom. Because to keep 600 and more than 47 laws, 48, something like that, is not something easy to do. So here is the answer of Jesus. He takes them back to what they know already, the Shema of Israel. O Israel, you must love your God with all your hearts, with all your minds, with all your understanding, and with all your souls. The second is this: you shall love your neighbor as yourself. To make the long story short, Jesus summarizes the whole laws into one commandment, which is actually directed to God and to the neighbor. What we call in theology a vertical love and the horizontal love. Why? Why is just Jesus only speaking about the love of God and the love of neighbor? Because it cannot be otherwise. We cannot claim to love God and not loving our neighbor. Jesus is not only God. He is true God. And Jesus is not only man. He is true man. So he is both human and divine. So you cannot love Jesus as God without loving Jesus as human. And you cannot love Jesus as human without loving Jesus as divine, as God. So the day you begin to love God without loving me as a human being, then John will say you are a liar. And the day you begin to love me as a human being without loving God, then your love is just a love that will not last, because God is the source of love. He is love. 1 John chapter 4, verse 16. God is love. That is his nature, and that's how he created us. The beginning of creation is out of love, and love is the nature of human being. Jesus is reminding us who he is and who we are. He is true God and true man, and we are sons and daughters of God. Just as he reminded us yesterday when being trapped, trying to be trapped about the coin, about the payment of taxes, that we should indeed give to Kaiser what belongs to Kaiser. It means the image of the Kaiser, that we see in the coin, should be given back to him. Live in the world as good citizens. Give to the world what belongs to the world. But then, returning to God what belongs to God is also that we ourselves are made in the image and likeness of God. And if we are made in the image of likeness of God and likeness of God, so we give ourselves back to God. At the end of the day, Jesus is reconciling everything. No dichotomy, no separation, and everything comes back in harmony. True love is that love that consists in loving God with all your hearts, and loving your neighbor with all your hearts. That is the true commandment. And that's the only commandment that if we keep all the laws in the Bibles and all the commandments are maintained.